Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to all of you, and welcome to the Leaders Summit. It's June 16. We are already in the second day of the Leaders Summit. We started out yesterday morning with Antonio Guterres and Lisa Kingo opening this 20th Leaders Summit, where we are celebrating 20 years of work in the private sector and collaboration with the UN, with academia and NGOs all over the world on working for the 10 principles in the private sector. 10 principles on the environment, on human rights, labor rights, and anti-corruption. That has been a very strong journey. There are now more than 70 local networks worldwide and 10,000 companies that have joined the UN Global Compact. Going forward, we are also celebrating the 17 SDGs and the dawn of the decade of delivery on this very important 10-year journey to 2030. And that is part of the topic today. And we are going to talk about them here. This is number 14, Life Below Water. And ocean is extremely important, not only, of course, for number 14, but for all the 17 global goals. And that is our mission here in this 1-hour session, is to understand the role of the ocean when we are going to deliver on all the 17 SDGs this decade. We have fantastic people that are going to join us this hour from industry, from governments, from academia, and so forth. We are still waiting for a few of them to log on with some technical issues on this hop-in platform. I think all of us have somewhat tried to become IT savvy to log on to all these different platforms. This hop-in platform is very interesting because we can have thousands of people coming together and having different breakout sessions. But of course, there's always a new issue, how to log on and use the right toolkits and so on. So you will have to bear with me when I try to get people on and off the floor because it's a bit unclear who has actually managed to log on. I have not heard yet from the Royal Court of Sweden, but Crown Princess Victoria of Sweden is planned to give the opening remarks. I know they are ready in Sweden. And if so, may I ask you to press this share video and audio button. If that works, then it will be about time. If not, I will move on and present some of the findings from our Stewardship Report 2030 that we released only 2 weeks ago in relation to the virtual UN Ocean Conference preparatory meetings that we had online together with World Economic Forum and WRI. Let me see if I can find the next speaker. No. If you bear with me 1 second, we will see if the IT department has sent me a message on that. No, we are, on so many platforms. It's a bit unsure who is sending a message from where. The link to this Ocean Stewardship Report 2030 is shared now by my colleague Martha, and I will now show you some of the key findings from this report. The work was led by Bente Pretlow, who's also struggling to get online to this platform today. Very unfortunate. It's really out of our hands. It's a great platform, I think, but sometimes the speakers themselves are struggling to get on board. Bente Pretlow has led this work. I think we had about 2,000 inputs from all over the world in the process from September last year to June this year in editing and processing this report. The idea was really to see what can the ocean industries, ocean-related industries, do to really deliver on the 17 SDGs going forward. This is a combination of the work that we've been doing the last 2.5 years in the UN Global Compact and the Action Platform on Sustainable Ocean Business. It's about trying to understand how we both can protect and save the health of the ocean, still produce more stuff from the ocean in a more sustainable way and a smaller footprint. The key findings is that if the world is going to progress more sustainably as a whole, we need to understand the ocean better, because we are in need of more seafood, more trade and shipping, but decarbonized, and we need more energy. At the same time, we must end waste entering the ocean, and we need to learn more about the ocean. These are topics we're going to touch upon today with the speakers that are in the first panel. But I would just say that bringing the industry together and academia and the UN in these discussions that have been going on in the platform has been fantastically inspiring. The idea was to really find these 5 tipping points, as we call them, and understand, are they realistic, and how can they really be a tipping point for us to reach the 17 SDGs, to ensure enough food for a growing population, enough economic growth, and climate action and climate resilience, and so forth. And the ocean industries represent a large part of the economy already today, both locally and globally. But we also see that in the emerging markets, the ocean economy will be very important and has a huge growth factor. Getting there to 2030 needs then a principled approach, and we need a collective approach, so one country or one company or one organization is not doing this different from others. So last September, we launched the 9 Sustainable Ocean Principles at the first day of the UN General Assembly. These principles are set for companies to show that they know what their impact on the oceans are, that they have a strategy to do something about it, and that they want to enclose their progress on this. Very important principles already adopted by banks and investment institutions, and it's seeking to show, to give transparency between companies and due diligence for networks of companies and value chains, so that every single company know that the opposite partner is actually taking the health of the ocean seriously. Based on that, as a baseline, we see that these 5 tipping points and these 10 very clear ambitions will be able to drive the international community and the business community towards the sustainable development goals. But we needed to do it collectively. We need it in aquaculture. We need common ground in shipping. We need common ambitions in energy production. And maybe first of all, we need it in end waste entering the ocean. We know that what happens in one part of the ocean, if one country lets waste and plastic enter the ocean, or excessive use of nutrients, it will affect all the neighboring local habitats, but also the ocean globally at large. Very big challenges, which are possible to solve if we work together. So this report is our roadmap for 2030. It's a part of the collaborative approach of the UN Global Compact, which we are celebrating here today. And every UN General Assembly in September, the first day of the high-level week, we will invite all of you and the larger community to come together and take stock. How are we doing on these 10 ambitions? How are the companies doing? And how are the governments doing? Because nobody can do this independently. This is something that we need to do together. Let me see. So that was the report done by the UN Global Compact Group, headed by Dean GL and Bente Petlow as the editor. Great piece of work, and I think it really also take into account all the other great work done by the other ocean initiatives going around. And I'm sure that speakers will touch upon that later in this session. I will just see here in the chat function if we are able to include the Royal Court. No, I can't really see them yet. Then I think we will move to the first panel. And I will ask the panelists, Geir Håe, Kongsberg Group, Jonathan Cole from Iberdrola, Therese Berger of Skretting, and Marisa Drew to now enter the stage, enter the scene exactly by sharing your camera and microphone. This seems to work very well this time around. That's perfect. And This panel is able to give us a better idea about the idea of stewardship going forward. How can we, as individual companies, as a group of private sector leaders, but also as a community at large, together with governments and UN institutions and academics, really deliver on the 2030 agenda 10 years from now? It's very ambitious goals, but we have to get there. We have to deliver on the Paris Agreement, and we have to deliver on the 17 SDGs. To start this session, Geir Hoye, you need to touch on bring your camera to life as well. I can see your profile photo, but not the camera. So let's see if that works. Because I would like to start with you, Geir Hoye. You are CEO of Kongsberg Gruppen. It's a technological company, tech company, but also a very strong maritime industry company. Been around for 150 years. And the first question I would like to ask you is about mapping the ocean. We know that we only know 5% of what's in the ocean. It's scientists that we work with. Every second specimen they find below 4,000 meters, which is the average depth actually of the ocean, is new to mankind. So there's a whole large world out there. And Geir, please give us an input from your side, if you are online.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
It worked a few moments ago. I see that you're talking, Geir, but we can't really see your image or your sound. So you try to log in again. I think we will. I'm sorry about this. It's really out of our hands. We have many great platforms, and this was one of them. So I will turn to you, Jonathan. Jonathan Cole, Managing Director at Iberdrola, the offshore renewable business division. Ocean energy. Everybody I meet talk about ocean energy as the big future, the big potential. Harnessing this enormous potential of renewable energy in wind, waves, and tidal waters. What is Iberdrola's roadmap going forward on this issue? Please.
Hi, Eric. Hi, everyone. At Iberdrola, we are one of the leading renewable energy companies in the world, and we've really been leading on the energy transition for around 20 years now. So, for us, developing the energy sector into a more sustainable, decarbonised model is something that we've been living with for a long time. I think there's probably two things you have to acknowledge if you're talking about ocean energy. First thing is that probably the biggest threat to marine biodiversity and our current use of the sea is climate change. And the second thing is that probably the only way you can deal with climate change whilst also managing to meet growing energy demand is to follow a model of electrifying as much of your economy as you can. So move as much of heating and cooling your homes, transporting with cars, etc., onto electrification, and then produce that by renewable sources. So what that means is it actually becomes an existential issue for humanity that we can get as much renewable energy produced as we can in order to allow us to fully decarbonise the power sector. And so when you turn to the ocean, you see an enormous potential. There was a study last year that was published by the International Energy Agency looking at realistic sites, realistic assumptions about current technology that said that the oceans could produce enough power for more than 10 times the global energy demand in 2040. Now, of course, that's not going to be the outcome in 2040, but it shows you the enormous potential that you have. And so we're in a position today where, thanks to the fact that offshore wind has now become one of the lowest cost means of producing electricity, practically every country with a coastline is now trying to get as much use of that coastline for producing renewable energy as they can. And the great news is that not only is offshore wind low cost and reliable and clean, it's also utterly consistent with the principles of ocean stewardship. Because if you look at the way in which we locate an offshore wind farm, the way in which we lay it out, where you might have as much as a nautical mile between each turbine, there's absolutely consistent uses of the ocean for us and other users, shipping, fishing, the leisure sector, etc. So it's completely consistent with other users. The other great thing about offshore renewables is it is a massive driver for economic growth, especially in coastal communities, which might be otherwise affected by other uses of the sea being in decline. So there's a huge opportunity for industrial redevelopment in these coastal communities and post-industrial towns all over the world, breathing life back in, creating thousands of sustainable jobs in each of these coastal communities. And the third thing is that thanks to offshore renewable energy, we're probably now spending more time and effort than ever before in gathering data about the ocean, about the seabed, about marine life, about bird life. And we are very selflessly sharing that data with key stakeholders, with public bodies, with the public in general, allowing everyone to make good, informed decisions about how best to use the sea and how best to manage conservation. So I think that offshore renewable energy is a massive opportunity for addressing climate change. It's a massive opportunity for economic stimulation in areas that really need it. And it's also utterly consistent with the principle of good stewardship and use of the ocean.
Thank you, Jonathan. Very good. I'll get back to you after the others have taken the floor, because I have some follow-up questions and a very, very interesting input from you. So, Geir, please, mapping the ocean. What is the potential going forward?
Yes, thank you. I'm finally on to the technology here. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you out there. I would like to start with saying Kongsberg, we have a fairly long history. We have been around for, in fact, 206 years. We are currently approximately 11,000 employees in 40 countries. And we are a technology company, and we like to say that we are delivering technology for extreme performance for extreme conditions. And we are covering the deepest of the ocean and basically out in the space as well. And more than 80% direct or indirect is related to the ocean. And we like to see ourselves as an ocean expert over these years. I think there are big opportunities in the field of research and sustainable utilization of the ocean. And you mentioned the mapping. I think a lot of the ocean is still unexplored, and we need to continue that mapping and that exploration. We have since 1947 been involved in design, in navigation, communication, and auto steering and advanced fish finding technologies. So we have some years experience in that. And I would say quite unique world-leading underwater drone called Hugin, and we also have a Moonin version, which is an underwater autonomous vehicle, which is capable of detailed mapping of the ocean down to more than 6,000 meters below the sea level, and that is collecting data in real time. We have also developed the water marine observatory, environmental monitoring, and we call that K-Lander. And in addition, we have also been pioneer for developing technology and solutions for offshore fish farming. We believe strongly that technology will make the difference in a more sustainable use of the ocean going forward. As we are gathered here for this Leader Summit, I want to finish my, let's say, opening remarks by saying that the need to achieve sustainable use of the ocean has never been greater. I believe that the Ocean Stewardship 2030 report should be used as a common foundation for all companies to start rethink their impact and also then, of course, then improve the corporate strategy accordingly. So together we need to identify how we can put business at work, delivering healthy and productive ocean with traceable seafood, green shipping, renewable energy, and ocean data sharing, and then the ultimate clean water without waste. So together we must define what it means to be stewards of the ocean.
Thank you, Geir. Very good remarks, and I'll stay with us. I'll come back to that. So, Therese Bergjord, you're CEO of Skretting, a leading fish feed industry. What is your take on the word stewardship going forward? Unmute yourself, please. I think you're...
Thanks for that. Thank you very much, Erik, and your team for putting the session together. I am the CEO of Skretting, and we are one of the world's largest aquaculture feed companies. And this is very relevant as the first focus area in the Ocean Stewardship 2030 report is sustainable seafood. So what does it mean for us to be an ocean steward in aquaculture? Well, aquaculture has been the fastest growing food sector for the last 50 years. It is abundantly clear that it will play a crucial role to continue to meet hunger and nutritional needs for a human population on Earth, closing up on 10 billion people. And currently, over 50% of seafood consumes come from aquaculture. And this is a huge responsibility. And to meet this challenge, we must have effective ocean stewardship. Of the approximately 85 million tons of fish caught in the ocean, 22 million tons are not directly used for food, but instead used for fish meal and fish oil production. And a significant portion of this is used for aquaculture feed. And these marine resources are finite, and currently 90% of fish stocks are at or over capacity. However, R&D has given aquaculture the license to grow, and it has more than doubled over the past 2 decades, while there has not been a significant increase in the use of fish meal and fish oil. And we cannot take any more from the ocean than it actually can sustain. And in many instances, we cannot wait for governments and regulators, but we must work together as industry to instigate change at the pace that the planet needs. And this is why we believe collaboration is essential for good stewardship. Programs like CBOS, bringing the world's biggest seafood companies together with scientists to address specific challenges, that's a huge step in the right direction. And the players within CBOS represent a very significant part of the seafood chain. And if we as keystone actors can positively impact our oceans, we are in fact ensuring opportunities and a sustainable future for all. We also need commitment. At the Our Ocean conference last year, I made a pledge to continue our research into what we call novel ingredients that do not compete with human consumption, but instead contribute to the circular economy. And the further we progress here, the less dependent we are on precision ocean resources. We have come a very long way, but there is still a lot more to do. And therefore, as an industry actor, we have a very distinct and important role to play. And I, as a CEO, a business leader, take it very seriously because the time to act is now, and that's why the opportunity for stewardship is paramount. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Therese. And that was, I think, a good introductory remark coming from a fish feed company. Welcome, Your Royal Highness, Crown Prince Victoria of Sweden. I'm sorry on our behalf for the technical difficulties. There has been for many speakers throughout the night to join this platform. As I said in the beginning, we're all trying to be IT stewards, but it's not easy for all of us. So I think before moving on to the next panelist, it will be our honor, Your Royal Highness, to hear your remarks on this session. So we're so glad to have you with us. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. And I'm very sorry for not being able to actually be there in time. Yet I was, but on the side. I I really wish I could see all of you face to face, but we all know, of course, that it's not possible at this time. However, on the bright side, I'm very happy that this virtual form of meeting allows for such a great number of participants in this session on an issue that is very close to my heart. So, ladies and gentlemen, as long as humans have walked the earth, the ocean has been a source of inspiration for art, music, and poetry, as well as a place for rest and recreation. However, beauty and inspiration is just a tiny part of all that the ocean provides us with. The oceans are our pantries and our water reserves. They are our transport routes. They give us raw materials and energy. And deep down under the surface, scientists are finding solutions to some of the great medical challenges of our time. Even the test being used to diagnose the coronavirus was developed with the help of an enzyme isolated from an underwater microbe. I know that many of you represent companies that base their business on the ocean. Like hundreds of millions of people, you live directly or indirectly of the sea, and you need to be able to continue to do so. This is not something that we can or should try to change, but what we must do, and with the greatest urgency, is to find a way how to use the ocean without using it up. With 2030 only a decade away, there is no time to spare. It is time to lead. Today, the ambition must be much more than sustainability. We need to become stewards of the planet. And the business sector is in a unique position to make that happen. As an advocate alumni for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, I have chosen to focus on marine and water issues. This has given me, among other things, the opportunity to be part of the SeaBOS initiative, which I believe is familiar to some of you. SeaBOS stands for Seafood Business for Ocean Stewardship. It involves 10 of the world's largest seafood companies in close collaboration with a scientific team led by Stockholm Resilience Center and united by a vision of ocean stewardship. On issues ranging from labor abuse to the use of plastics and antibiotics, the members of SeaBOS are using the best available science to set new standards for their industry, leading a global transformation towards sustainable seafood production and a healthy ocean. Now, if 10 large companies can start to transform their whole industry, just imagine what can be achieved with the almost 10,000 companies of the United Nations Global Compact. When you move out of your comfort zone and team up with science, when you make use of new innovative tools for financing, and when you tap into the synergies of working across sectors, this is what ocean stewardship is all about. Securing your future for your industries by securing the future of our ocean. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you for your time, your commitment, and your courage. Because indeed, it does take courage to make the right decisions, especially when those decisions are difficult, uncomfortable, and sometimes expensive. But that is what true leaders do. They lead by example, letting their actions define their legacy. Again, we need to find a way to use the ocean without using it up. Now, the world is looking to you to find that way. I will follow your important work, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Your Royal Highness. Fantastic. Very kind of us to join us here this afternoon, and thank you so much again for participating.
Thank
You
you.
can now log out. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, thank you. With those words, we will go back to the panel here, and I will actually move over to you, Marisa. Drew, I think this was a really good segue from Her Royal Highness, because she says, use the ocean without using it up. And the real test is, of course, is it too expensive or is it too risky? So please, the floor, I will introduce you. You are from Credit Suisse, of course. You're the CEO of the Impact Advisory and Finance Department. Very good partner here with the UN Global Compact. Great work to all of you colleagues. Please, Marisa, the floor is yours.
Great. Well, thank you. And I do agree that Her Royal Highness provided the segue, because she touched on financial innovation and she touched on cost. And as a steward representing the financial services industry, certainly I think at our heart, what are we trying to accomplish? It is to mobilize capital to help solve and create positive outcome, help solve challenges and create positive outcomes, whether they be environmental or social. And in that respect, I think the first step was to understand what are the finance gaps in this space. Because if we can't quantify it, then investors don't know how to create the opportunity to get invested behind that. So we started there, frankly, in our work. And it was a surprise to me when I first
did together with the UN Office of Information and Communications Technologies, supported by SAP, Wilhelmsen, Cermaq, Modis, SEA, other great companies. You won the track on end wasting the ocean. And give us a small taste of what was your solution, because we not only need big finance, we need concrete solutions. Lokesh, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Eric. Firstly, I would like to thank you all for the opportunity over here. It feels great to come after such a huge, great panel who have such great insights about the ocean and how the way forward. So yes, for everyone, my name is Lokesh Samwani, and I am one of the co-founders of Recube Circular Solution. If you all don't mind, I actually have a presentation to show to you all, which will help you all understand what we do better.
Very good. Perfect.
Yes, perfect. So I'm sure that all of you all know about the persistent waste problem around the globe. Everyone knows what's happening. So to just give you all a gist, imagine we create a packaging which lasts less than 30 minutes, but takes approximately 500 years to degrade. So the entire timeline doesn't go in that particular front. Now, to give you all an example, Singapore actually had to create a man-made island just to keep their waste over there. And believe me when I say this, that island is also about to come up completely full. So a lot of people have been trying to switch through eco-friendly alternatives and figuring out what's the way forward. But many people switch to compostables and biodegradables, which may not be the perfect solution. Because when you actually conduct a life cycle assessment of each particular material, it turns out that a lot of resources are being used to create this, and it doesn't get composted or biodegraded in the best possible manner. So what we do primarily, as you know, the world is completely moving from a linear economy to a reuse and now a circular economy. We primarily have three objectives what we try to cater to. The first objective being that we try and reduce the material from each kind. So what we do is that we try and find alternatives which are bio-based. So getting the carbon footprint of that particular material down. We incorporate each packaging with tech. So we have IoT-enabled systems on our particular back end. The second thing what we do to all of our clients, we give off a material and we ask them to reuse it. Either they can keep them and wash it at their facility, or we can collect it back and sanitize and restock them whenever it's required. The third step is the most important step over here. What we like to call ourselves are the life cycle agents. So at the end of the life of each particular packaging, we will decide if we need to at least we are confident that we are not emitting any particular waste into the oceans. So as of now, we've been very successful. We have 4 brands running, 3 of them being primarily in the food and beverage sector. As you can see, our products are made of crop waste. Crop waste is a residue what we take back from the rice waste, which is primarily used in India, and we make products out of these. They're completely sturdy, reusable, and they can be used up to 100 times. So as you can see, a small flow chart that we give it to our people. Our collection is completely sterile and hygiene. Everything is completely done. The person can, the brand or the customer can just scan the code and ask for the option of collection, and we will collect it and we will again restock it in the same particular platform. So it's like a bike rental platform, but for your packaging.
Very good. Lukesh, we are
Yes.
just a bit behind time. So I think this was a very good introduction to some of the key issues that Recube has done. You have won
Sure.
the Reboot the Ocean track on end waste entering the ocean, and you will join us in Lisbon, and we will have a real stage when we meet there next year. And we have 5 minutes coming together, so it's really great to have an input from you now, and thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much. We will now
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Vidar Helgesen, Special Envoy for the Ocean at the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to take the floor, and also ask Her Excellency Ndiko Oludong, of the Permanent Representative for Polai to the United Nations, to also come to the scene. But Vidar, first, the floor is yours. What is the next decade perspective seen from the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy? Vidar.
Thank you very much, Eric, and thanks to the panel for a fascinating discussion. And I think much of what the panel has been discussing is really what is on the horizon. You said, Eric, that what we really need is to get people together. We need to get the projects together with the finance. We need to connect the competence and the technology across sectors. I think there are huge opportunities for boosting the global economy post-COVID-19 by managing the ocean sustainably and thinking across sectors. There are opportunities between renewable energy production and distribution and the maritime sector. There are opportunities at the intersection of offshore wind and aquaculture. Obviously, solutions to plastic and nutrient pollution need to be found in the intersection between the ocean and land. So we really need to seek synergies and innovate and finance that innovation across sectors. And what I feel as a representative of a government is that it is imperative that when we talk about innovation, it's not only about business innovation, technological innovation, financial innovation, it's also about governance innovation. And given that the ecosystems are interconnected and changing fast, given that environmental pressures are interconnected, they're not compartmentalized, they add up and reinforce each other. And given that human activity on the ocean is adding up, and we're going to see a growing human activity in the ocean, we also need to look at that in a holistic manner. So I think the challenge for governments, it's much the same as for business. It is really to take a holistic grasp of the ocean and ensure that we have a governance framework, starting with coastal states. There's much talk about the high seas, but most of the action and most of the biodiversity is at home. And we need to start by governments taking that responsibility to integrate, to ensure a holistic, planned approach to the ocean. That will be a very important part of the decade ahead, reinforced by the science decade for the ocean that we have, that will inform decisions and give us much more data and much more knowledge upon which we can shape sound policies for ocean health and wealth.
Excellent. Thank you. I think it's Norway has been a great supporter of this platform, of course, but also a driver behind the high-level panel. And we are at the dawn of the decade, as you said, both the ocean science, but also for the 17 SDGs. I think you have a very strong point on the innovation of governments. Do you think governments, you are of course not neutral on this, but are governments as agile and innovative at this point as they need to be compared to companies?
I think there's an uneven picture, but generally, no. Things are changing so fast, and we really need to adapt governments to that fact. That goes for my own government, and it goes for other governments. And I think the pandemic has actually given us an opportunity to rethink and to reflect on how governments can be agile and actually at some levels take some risks and then correct course. You don't need to stick to a policy if it's wrong. You need to be on the ball and you need to take opportunities. And because ecosystems in the ocean are changing so fast in dramatic ways, we need our systems for managing the ocean to be agile and adaptive as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. And you can now log off the scene. Please stay with us if you want to listen in. And we now have Ambassador Uludong to take the floor. If you can press the blue button, and you can. The floor is yours, Ambassador. Excellent. Thank you. Please. We are 6 months away, I think it is, from our ocean conference, and you are also a chair, of course, on the high-level panel, and we would love to hear your perspectives on the road ahead for the ocean industries and the ocean stewards.
I think, and thank you so much, Eric, for inviting me. And it's so that I come at the tail end, of course, really hearing the strong opening from Her Royal Highness Crown Princess Victoria about what the value of ocean is to her, and what leaders need to do as ourselves to lead by example is to show actions. It is also quite fitting for me to follow the big private sector businesses that spoke on the panel. And of course, with my co-chair Vidar representing Norway, which with the president of Palau and Prime Minister Solberg co-chaired the high-level panel on sustainable ocean economy. So with that sort of segue, it's very important that you look at where we are, which you spoke in the opening, that as the UN Global Compact basically is towards ensuring the principles of good business when it comes to the oceans, that balance of ocean health and ocean wealth. And then, of course, you have the UN commitments from member states and from the business that complement that. Now, the road ahead between now and to our Oceans Conference in December, I mean, this is like all the more prime moment for why there is that case for stewardship from private and public sector, because that's the most important that you're seeing now. And that this, our Ocean Conference, the very intent of it when it began in 2014, and of course members of the compact of business leaders have been attending all over the years, is because that our ocean space on the conference outside of the UN Ocean Conference provides the platform where business and public go hand in hand, and the government, civil society, and youth. So in looking towards our ocean conferences, look at the milestone, the high-level panel has been coming up and working with the business sector and the science to put the business, the science, and knowledge together and saying, okay, these are the issues that we face on oceans, and what sort of business opportunities can this panel show and do. And our Ocean Conference gives that space. As you know, we began the year with a super year of nature and super year of oceans. And all of a sudden, this virus, this coronavirus, COVID-19, has changed what we think is normal to the new normal. So now we have to listen to the nature, listen to the science, and go veer away from business as usual and try to look. I mean, right now the health industry is going to produce a lot of waste from the plastic mask and the PPE. So while the good for nature is short-lived, how can we ensure that businesses then look at, for example, the Great Pacific Garbage? Because all these garbage go somewhere if it goes in the ocean. So how can businesses now, especially, I mean, we look for the leadership for the Business from Global Compact to come to Palau at the end of the year and showcase what the industry can do to transform change. And that's what I think for Palau with us, with our own marine protected area, where we close 80% of our exclusive economic zone to commercial fishing and just implemented this year, is that local actions can lead to global actions. And that's our theme for the conference. And thank you, Eric. I just wanted to share that in the road ahead, we need a new transformative change to ensure the protection and conservation of our ocean. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. We are looking forward to the Our Ocean Conference, virtually and physically, hopefully. And I think your last words there really wrap that. This is the 20th anniversary of the UN Global Compact. We try to work locally and globally because we need to have the bigger picture at hand when we go forward for the SDGs. And thank you so much to everybody taking part today. This birthday party will go on a few more hours, sending from all over Europe and then USA in a few minutes, I think. We are moving on. And thank you so much for taking part, and looking forward to working with all of you on the ocean issues going forward. Thank you so much, and have a good afternoon.